Howdy of you delicious people. I'm here today to review Power Rangers Dino Fury episodes 10 and 11. So, episode 11 kind of teases that there's gonna seemingly be a good show, and then goes right back to same old, same old. Like, episode 10, I'm just like, I really have to describe this show to people. Like, I have to tell people what episode 10 actually is. Really? The deciding factors that happen upon these shows, or these episodes, I'm just like, man, like, there desperately needs just a hard reset on Power Rangers whatsoever. But it won't happen. It won't ever happen. Because it's just, no, we're just going to continue to just deliver the same old, because we'll just find a new audience, we'll just find a new person, we'll just find a whatever, like, F any person that has ever been loyal to the show. Let's just keep doing these goofy concepts, and, like, let's just go to the same well over and over again, because Power Rangers can only get a small portion of themes to be put together. Man, I'm just waiting for what is to happen for the next season of Power Rangers, because I'm assuming there's going to be a same consistent kind of theme. It's probably going to be some animal theme, I'm sure, because it worked so well with so many of the other seasons. So, and plus Dinosaurs has worked so well for so many of the other seasons, so that's probably the next thing that's going to go on, right? Man, like, the quality of writing when, like, seeing, especially episode 10, I'm like, man, this is like VR Troopers territory, like, going on here. I'm like, man, like, I should go and watch VR Troopers and just kind of feel like the same kind of quality is being dipped from decades later. But, like, what am I to say, because I've never written a show in my life, right? Like, man, if only I could come up with concepts of shows, interesting things that will feel unique, finally, to the Power Rangers mythos of things, or just story of things. But anyways, like, who am I to say, because Power Rangers is just this consistent thing that has been out for so long. It just, the shows write themselves, right? Like, why do you need to get a new approach, a new whatever? Like, again, it's just like, hey, if the thing just keeps on selling, that's what I kind of, again, like, especially the very, like, these two last episodes, I'm like, man, like, if these people were around when Hyperforce is around, like, I'm kind of curious how much input, like, Sabin had on Hyperforce. Because when looking at the Hyperforce show, and looking how, like, the Pink Ranger in that show had this thing called the Battleizer, and how, like, there were so many cutesy but cringe things going on in Hyperforce. Now looking at this show, especially with just these two episodes, how it really feels like a copy and paste of Hyperforce. If you kind of look at the later episodes, but also just Hyperforce in general, go ahead and check out Hyperforce, because you'll just feel like a copy and paste of what is to happen here for these last episodes. But if you're to think that we're to get something ever anything different, we'll just get the same old, same old. To the point where there's a lot of times where I think people will question whether or not that I really did, like, really pay attention to these, and I probably just didn't. If it seemed like I really paid attention to every single one of these episodes, like, I had problems doing that. My attention span was not as good as whatever. So for any point in time, if there was an episode that, like, feel like I just didn't, like, have the enough details, because there's obviously a person that is to mention that, it's probably because that was an episode where I'm like, really, they're going with this? Like, really, they're doing this in this episode? They're spending a lot of time to do this, and it's a thing that seems so jumbled around and so whatever, And like this just feels like a dumb episode. This feels like a dumb story. So, with that said, Power Rangers is never going to change. Power Rangers is never going to get better. That's why they're never going to have another movie come out, I don't think, ever in any time in the so on future. It's just going to remain a show, and they're just going to keep eventually just doing this, and we're just going to have to just be fine with it. Because again, like the target audience of Power Rangers is just getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So yeah, like even though this should be technically a family show, so that way everybody's getting something out of this, because eventually parents are gonna have to watch this with their kids. Like really, it's just gonna be just this small window of audience that people are just gonna tolerate things. So, with that said, Power Rangers Hard Reset. Give it like, you know what? You know what'd be great if they had the kiddie show, but then also branch out and also give also like an HBO Max or something kind of thing, where you have a maturer version. I think the rated R Power Rangers thing would honestly tell Power Rangers itself, like, there needs to be a mature or an adult thing out there. And even, like, there's been other actual Power Rangers quoted to say, like, yeah, man, I would actually like this same thing, aka Jason David Frank, would tell us that's like, yeah, man, like, that whole Power Rangers thing, like, somebody asked me about it, but I'm like, well, it didn't have the Saban approval, so I wasn't involved in it. But hey, man, I would love to have a Power Rangers thing that was much more mature for a lot of people that grew up with this stuff. Because, yeah, like, a freaking episode that is catered around dog food or a dog who has mantis antlers. Why? So that's my grievance. So, now that I got that out of the way, let's go into the last two episodes of this, because at least I got that all out of the air, or out of, like, I vented. So, and a lot of people may feel differently. People may have liked every single one of these episodes. People may have liked every single season because they have just been a person that just can easily like things, and I can't. So, let's go into this. So, really just, episode 10 has a dog-cat theme for whatever reason. But also, we have a episode where Zato is to be phoning home. Ugh. Like, it is kind of hilarious how all of a sudden, without even looking at the titles of the episodes, I could already tell you what a title of an episode is in some other review without actually looking at the title of any number of these episodes. Man, I am just psychically just, like, talented of some kind of sort, because evidently, like, my brain is thinking almost in the same similar wavelength as a Power Rangers show. Man, maybe I'm not a good writer. Maybe, maybe I would go into a writing room of a Power Rangers thing or a Power Rangers project of some kind and just be like, yeah, like, I want to go and I want to write a whole episode about a dog too. Like, could we just have the Power Rangers all turn into dogs in this episode? Because, man, that seems like a cool adventure. Like, could we do, like, Super Pups? Like, could we have a whole episode of Power Rangers Super Pups? Because that way we can queue up to the baby audience. Anyways, so there's this whole episode about dog food, but Zato is to supposedly have a God, what is it? Ravkanian come to Earth. So that's really like a bulk of what this episode is to be. We supposedly have a new villain general because 2 episodes. And then like episode 11 is to tease us with a supernatural episode, but then just delivers the same old, where nothing really has a real true supernatural theme overall. Like, well, that seems kind of like the monster in this episode doesn't have a supernatural theme, but there is like a closely, like, we have this whole McScary manner of a thing that is to me, this episode reminds me of an episode of Beetleborgs without the werewolf and the Frankenstein and the God, what was the blubber guy, whichever. But like, we just have a monster that is to just arrive in setting and just be like the same old kind of monster, which eventually leads us to have the Pink Ranger, because since this is a episode where she has a focused episode, she has to forcibly get new powered thing, which is leading her to get this armor, which I'm like, okay, this feels like Hyperforce, because Pink Ranger had gotten the Battleizer in that Hyperforce show. I don't even know why I have to remember anything from Hyperforce. That show didn't really have like a good enough payout. They probably had a decent cast, some of them. And I'm probably bashing that show way too often, but the show wasn't creative enough, but neither is this. Anyways, so like every single Power Ranger is just a normal human, with the exception of one alien in this episode. But like, what do they do with that? Anyways, so like episode 10 is just a crossover of really just having, like, we just have one person that has to carry an episode, and episode 10 was just Slyther. Like, so man, are they just stretching these episodes, and man, are they like, they come up with a concept in an episode. I'm just like, no, all right, just concept to carry the episodes. Like, they must have like really just already had every single one of these episodes already planned out, but then they didn't know how to write them. Like, every episode must have had a plan, but then it was just like, so how are we going to stretch this for 20 some odd minutes? I don't know, we'll figure something out. And then that's just how, like, things were just stretched for the season. But, like, what am I supposed to know? Because I've never written an episode for TV in my life, but still. Freaking, like, if you're going to go and do so much with video game stuff, why not actually just have, like, a video game thing be the overall heavy amount of a theme? Why not just have it a video game theme? If there's so many stuff that always is to be relatable to a video game, why not just have it a video game theme? If you're going to have a paranormal or supernatural character that is to barely do a lick of anything with that at all, why not just have a supernatural or paranormal theme? If you're going to do something that is to be like a Buzz Blast kind of thing, where you're like make that a theme, like make a TV or televised world where like everybody is to be a reporter or something. Make that a theme. Make that a true legitimate, like, hey, this is like, bottle everybody in a TV, basically. Do like a Pleasantville thing where all of a sudden every episode has these TV things. Pull off a WandaVision if that's what you're gonna do, but like at least that would be something different, something slightly tweaking, something that is to at least be something that is not the same old song and dance that we've been given forever. So, let's go into that double five. Let's spoil this so I can go and call it a day. So, spoiler time. It's about that time I'm going to spoil this episode. So, for episode 10, the only thing that I guess really matters in this episode is that Zato is to be eating dog food from his planet, Rafcon, because Sola is just like, hey, I want to make you feel better about things, so I'm going to make supposedly a food that is from your planet. He starts eating it, and he's like, well, let me go and touch you, and let me show you that, hey, you know what, like, this is actually dog food, because I would give it to my dog all the time. This dog has mantis freaking horns like Zato does, and I'm like, this is great. But that's not all, folks. That's not where the dog stuff ends. And so Buzz Blast has this segment that they're doing, and all of a sudden Jay Borg ends up turning into a cat, and like dog is being chased around. What the heck is this? I don't know. They continue with this theme for frickin' whatever reason. Jay Borg goes running off. Now Jane has to chase after it to find her Jay Borg / cat. Here is where, like, I would just say, like, now I do not like either Jane or Jay Borg in these episodes. Now I'll say them now. Like, I didn't mind the characters before. Now this is just like, man, this is stupid. Like, these characters are being used as some goofy gag that honestly just seems stupid in these last 2 episodes. God, were they just, like the whole cat thing, I'm just like, oh my god, this is freaking awful. But what difference does it make? It's Power Rangers. That's how, like, the seasons just trickle out to where there's some seasons where I'm like, I can't even justify me watching, like, certain Power Ranger seasons because I just know it's gonna be like, God, this story is just, anyways, because it's just the same old thing. It's never going to change. You might as well want to go back and trickle back into Mighty Morphin or Zeo or just something that just feels slightly a tweed bit different as far as story goes, where you're going to have fun with it. Like actual fun, where you're just like, yeah, I actually am okay with all these episodes. I want to go and see a monster just eating the Power Rangers because, like, it's better than just the stuff that's delivered. So, like, we're gonna finish up with all that dog cat crap. So now we're gonna go into what really is to be important in this episode. So, because, like, Void Knight is realizing that, like, hey, like, Zato really just, or no, wait, like, they really know that Zato just desperately wants to just call home. He just wants to ET phone home because that's the thing that I've already said, and then also I knew the title of this episode. That's great. So there's a general that is to be appearing, and luckily they gave him, like, an actual seemingly important kind of, like, introduction and whatever. Like, Void Knight is just like, hey man, I'm gonna take this Sporix and go and just make something important out of this. Where it's like, okay, like, I guess they learned that they should just actually showcase the origin of everything instead of just dropping things down and just saying, hey, new general, woohoo! So we have this guy called Slyther who is to change into different people. I'm like, wow, that's actually a smart thing to do. Man, would I just love a villain that is to appear as a person to these people to get their guard down, and then all of a sudden he just goes and just tears through and rips through everybody, and then it's like, ha 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 ha, I'm actually the villain. Or like, wouldn't it be interesting if we had like a moment where like this character is to be the villain, and then all of a sudden like is an actual monster, but then all of a sudden like the monster is to just realize like, wait a minute, like, you know what, maybe I was wrong, maybe like these kids were just treating me so good, maybe I should just be a Power Ranger now. Like, wouldn't that be cool to just have that where it's just like you have this journey of this character who is to be a villain, then all of a sudden switched sides because like he realized that, like, you know what, while I was spending time with these characters, like I realized that, like, man, like maybe I should just join sides with the Power Rangers and just like I'll actually just be monster character for the rest of my time. But like, of course, when we go out somewhere, I'll change and I'll be like so and so character. Instead of being out in the public as some alien or monsterish character. But anyways, so I'm taking too long for this. I apologize. Slifer is to change into a woman named Arya, and like, here is honestly the best part of this entire episode. So Solon is just like, you know what? I need to question this Arya girl. I need to question, like, I need to really second guess everything because something seems just a little suspicious. Where Arya is mentioning that they can destroy all of the Sporex on her ship because technically her ship has the equipment. I'm like, well, wouldn't she have easily shown the Power Rangers her ship? Like, wouldn't Arya have landed right where Dino Henge is? Like, how is it that Arya has a ship that can be easily not be seen by anybody? That seems a little fishy. But Solon is starting to question Arya consistently, and eventually there's this kind of like back and forth with Solon and Arya, and so like Arya eventually gets like found out by Solon, who gives her food, and Arya eats it and is like, yeah, this is good. No. And then Solon is like, well, yeah, of course it's not good because it's dog food. The whole thing comes full circle to why they needed dogs in this show. Whatever. So, Arya turns into Slifer, and so, but we just push on this character to eventually have Slifer like fight all the Power Rangers, do the normal sword thing. Like, I thought it would have been funny if they would have kept playing around with the whole, like, this Slifer thing can change into other people, but no, they didn't do that either. Like, they just, like, if a person has a gimmick, just go to it to death, because who knows how long the character is going to be on there for. Because, like, you might as well, anyways. But whatever. So, but because we had Slifer, who just turns into the villain of another episode, the Rustafa, which I'm like, man, if there's a good monster to turn into, Rustafa was clearly one of them, right? No. But yeah, so Megazord comes through and takes this thing out, as always, because they go into the same formation of But man, also, am I just severely annoyed with the whole sword thing where they have to do the clicking thing back and forth of the dinosaur or the dinosaur thing on the sword, the clicking, the thing. I'm just so just man, when they go to a well with like certain kind of toys, man, do they just drill it into you that they're like, hey man, look at what this one thing this sword can do. Yeah, like is that that's obviously a toy they need to sell. Obviously, man, if that sword could just like talk or do something like Saba did, uh, to where it just moves on its own, then like man, that would be pretty sweet, right? Uh, but like it's just a sword that is chomp chomp chomp. I'm like great, that's just great. So just moving on to the last episode because at least that episode was much more intriguing than this one. So the last episode, because I'm skipping like through these ones because it's just like quality sucks. But anyways, so Pop Pop is to come back. If there was ever a person that needed to be coming back, it's clearly Pop Pop. Like, man, like this guy needs to have a whole like he needs to become a ranger. He needs to like have a whole story arc. Uh, like this guy needs to be like the Zordon of this group. Just give them all their powers and whatever. Just like, yeah, I'm the old Power Ranger. Yeah, yeah. I'm the sixth ranger. They already have a sixth ranger. I know it's a gold ranger. There's footage going around of a gold ranger being put out. So obviously this show is going to come back at some point for whatever freaking reason. Because this show is talented. It's a talented show. So talented. As I say that, as like, what am I doing with my life? So, Pop Pop is going into this McScary Manor. Clever name. So Pop Pop goes to clean this place out, and all of a sudden we have these like these spooky dolls that are to seem like Annabelle is going on in here. Because I seen Annabelle, so I was thinking of like Annabelle while watching this episode. So Pop Pop is to be in this manor, and all of a sudden he is to hear, not see, hear a spooky sound, and so he is to run off to go to Buzz Blast while Amelia is reading some paranormal kind of magazine. There was this one episode where Amelia was to mention that she was desperately trying to find any news articles with like Sasquatch or like some kind of ghost or something in it. That was one part of one episode, and I completely forgot about that, but I remembered that now when I was in this spot. But yeah, so Javi is to mention to Amelia about certain kind of like stories, like about like a purple bearded pirate character or something. Where Amelia is like, oh, like I want to go and take down Purple Beard guy, and Javi's like, well, I just made that up. It's like so how much time did we waste here? Like Javi, I guess, was trying to make Amelia feel good. But, like, luckily Pop Pop was going to do a way better job at that. So, Pop Pop goes to Buzz Blast. And I would have liked if Pop Pop would have been, like, possessed by some ghost or something. Because, like, he seemed very vastly different. And I was like, maybe he's possessed. Like, wouldn't that be a cool story? To have, like, Pop Pop all of a sudden just like, yeah, I'm now a monster. I'm going to come after you, kids. But no. So Amelia is to set Pop Pop down, and Pop Pop is to be like, yeah, I think there was a ghost in McScary Manor. So Amelia takes the keys from Pop Pop to go to McScary Manor with her ghost uh, weapon of a thing, which I'm like, thank God they came back to this, because for every time that I would probably complain about, like, hey, they didn't go back to this, they didn't do this, eventually they will eventually do that. They'll dedicate a whole entire episode to going back to that, because they can't just sprinkle it out through whole entire episodes of things. Because, like, man, do they just they've been stretching episodes for time, and yet I'm like, why not go back to this? Why not go back to this story, this character? And because you're stretching these episodes anyways. So, like, you could do a little side quest of this character, a side quest of this character. Just so that way it won't feel like every episode is a stretch for time. But what do I know? Anyways, consistently belittling me, but also belittling the show. We're at equal footing, technically. So, and also, there's a lot of times when I talk about these episodes that are just like I'm chucking this one out. So, Amelia goes to think that there is going to be a ghost in McScary Manor. Out of actually, like, here's how we could have really trickled this whole thing out. It would have been interesting if we would have been building this thing where Amelia goes in there, all of a sudden she starts hearing these crackles, these sounds, things fall over. Like, let's build this. If we're gonna do this, let's build it to where she consistently gets scared by things that aren't actually this ghost. Build it. That would have been great. So Amelia eventually goes to the same room where Pop Pop was, coincidentally, because there's probably very small amounts of rooms in place. So, for this show. So, Amelia is to go to this room, and all of a sudden we see this pyramid monster, because that fits perfectly with the theme of what's going on here, right? No. So, we have this monster called Tombstress, which is to modify certain people's behavior and wrap them up like mummies. I'm like, you know what? Hold on a minute. The mummy wrapping thing, like the whole wrapping of person, that was smart. Like having the pyramid character wrapping the person up similar to a mummy, that was actually intelligent. Bravo to that. But then the whole mood shifting thing of a ranger, point taken back away from Gryffindor. Like, I'm just like, you guys wanted to do like two different things and for this one monster, and mood shifting Power Rangers where all of a sudden Zato, who probably has like the best thing going on here, where he's just lazy and he's also complaining about the show himself. Where he's like, I'm just sick of all this Zord play and whatever. Like, come on. Like, he was like almost complaining about the show while being on the show. Like, I'm sick of all this Megazord stuff. Whatever. Like, I was like, yeah, like, that's what you should be like. Cancel the show. Reboot show. Give us something sweet and delicious instead of whatever this is. But, so, Tombstress is to go and fight these people again, shifting all these moods, making it where, like, Ollie at one point was really happy, Zato was really lazy, like, and there was just, like, some of the Power Rangers had these, like, weird moods. It's kind of funny how, like, Izzy had so much of an importance in, like, a certain episodes, but then now she's, like, her character is dead. I say dead in the sense of just like, okay, she's just there now. Like, she's on screen. What does she do? Lick of nothing. But again, these episodes feel very like sitcomish, or like they feel very like Melrose Place again with these episodes. So, but yeah, so of course, as per usual, Megazord kill this thing off as per every single thing. If they were told already that they were to cut off at this episode, like, man, did they give you just kind of the same old kind of thing. But also, Pink Ranger is to morph to give Pop Pop back his key for the McScary Mansion. And all of a sudden, we actually have some backstory that Pop Pop is to deliver to us about how Amelia's parents are to have gone into some, like, supernatural, spooky, whatever kind of thing. Like, he kind of gets very vague about it. And so Pop Pop didn't want Amelia to go into the same, like, circumstance of things, like, as her parents, because Pop Pop wanted to protect Amelia from heading in the same, like, it's basically like Harry Potter, where this girl is like an equivalent of Harry Potter, where her parents died, so this didn't they didn't want Amelia to become like another dead Harry Potter anyway. Whatever, but like, so, like, this guy is just divulging all this information about Amelia to the Pink Power Ranger, and like, you know what, if I would have been the Pink Power Ranger, I'm like, why do I care? Like, we just needed a backstory of Amelia, coincidentally, to the Pink Power Ranger. Yeah. So that's the only thing that's really important here. Pop Pop is to fix the AC of Buzz Blast, and we end this episode with there to be consistently extreme weather conditions going on in Jane's office, where she's to mention that she's really hot, really cold, really windy, really whatever. So, like, and they have to end the episode with Jane tossing a snowball at Pop Pop. And I'm just like, this is how we're ending whatever this is. Like, it's just... Oh... I honestly want to feel good when I watch a Power Rangers episode. Like, 100% good, where I'm just like, oh my god, this is amazing. I don't ever feel like that way anymore when I watch a Power Rangers episode where I'm like, wow, like, this has an interesting concept. Oh my god. Like, I don't have that reaction when I watch Power Rangers. I have that reaction when, like, I watch something that is similar to Power Rangers. Like, man, like, what they did with Guyver, wow. Like, man, Guyver, that seems similar to Power Rangers. Wow, Guyver, like, man, that was interesting. And then when I go back into Power Rangers, I'm like, oh, yeah. They're doing things. Some interesting designs this season, because I don't even, I'm also just kind of mentioning this as if this is like a season ender, but it won't. Like, I really think that there just needs just a real thought out Power Ranger season. Like, a real, like, hey man, we're gonna just try something really different, but it's just like, here's also the thing. So you're gonna get people that if you try something drastically different, you're going to get a lot of people that are like, hey man, I don't like this drastically different direction. because I've been liking everything led up to this moment, and like, yeah, but like, one, how many, like, when you look at that, you look at like, if there's an overwhelming, like, this isn't Power Rangers to me, kind of like, look at probably like Hyperforce, where like Hyperforce, the common comment is like, this doesn't feel like Power Rangers to me. And so like, you probably have a lot of people that are just like, whoa, like, how is it that like you can never take a Power Ranger season and be as excited as you would like a Spider-Man No Way Home trailer? Like, whoa, like everybody's going banana about it. Like, it kind of feels like the importance of Power Rangers over the years has just died. Uh, so yeah, it's just like, God, like, man, would I, if there was an opportunity to really have fun with this kind of like Power Rangers and have fun with it and like create your own, like, honestly, I think it would be really cool if they did like DC, like a DC universe thing kind of did, where you can go in, create your own Power Ranger, and like kind of go through this big long stretch of a story. Like, that would actually be cool. And like, all of a sudden you would have like this huge connection of all these like Power Ranger things in this town, where all of a sudden you just bump into all these rangers, you just bump into like having to fight putties, or all of a sudden just like, you would all of a sudden have just like Rita just pop in some portion of town. You'd be like, whoa, like unexpected. Like, there is nothing really unexpected about a Power Ranger show. And so, like, yeah, like, I would love a much more creative Power Ranger show that like, I could really just be like, you know what, I love the creativity of this. Like, I love the unique approach to this. Because, man, I've always been a person that is to say, like, man, I want to be creative. I want to have some creative juices flowing, and it's very hard to do that in just a review like thing. But if I were to do something with creative juices, it would go nowhere. So it's just like, well, like, let's just keep going back to the same review, the same whatever. But anyways, I am going to get out of here because I talked for too long, about 2 episodes. So bye, everybody. Bye, everybody.